Choosing the right components is the most important part of building a PC. And if I had to start over from scratch today, this is exactly my thought process and how I choose each component. Quick disclaimer, I'm not an expert. Everything I'm about to say comes from my own experience, things I learned from fixing my own PCs, and a lot of research. My first PC was on an old machine my uncle gave me back in 2020. It was slow, outdated, and broke more times than I can count. Every time it stopped working, I had to figure out how to fix it. Looking back, that PC taught me almost everything I know about computers. Because of that experience, I think a lot differently about PC parts now than I did when I first got one. The first thing I do is figure out what I'm actually going to use the PC for. I know that's a generic advice, but it's important. A PC for gaming isn't the same as a PC for video editing. A PC for schoolwork isn't the same as a PC for 3D rendering. The clearer your goal is, the easier it becomes to choose parts and stay within your budget. But if I would recommend what types of PC you should build, it will surely be a balanced one. If you mostly focus on games, then go purely for it. Once I know what I'm building the PC for, I start asking myself three questions. First, does this part fit my needs? Second, will it work well with the rest of the system? And third, can I upgrade it later without replacing half the PC? If a part checks all the three boxes, then it's probably worth considering. The first component I look at is the CPU because that's usually what I build around. Instead of immediately looking for the fastest processor I can afford, I look for something that matches what I'm actually going to do. For example, since I play games and edit videos, I probably look for a CPU with enough cores to handle both comfortably. Someone who only plays games might make a completely different choice, and that's completely fine. You won't want to buy more expensive CPU for additional cores that you won't be able to use. After choosing a CPU, the next thing I check is the socket. A lot of beginners overlook this, but your motherboard has to support your CPU. That's why compatibility is so important before buying anything. Then I move on to the motherboard. Personally, I don't think most people need the most expensive motherboard available. I rather choose something that's the feature I need today while still giving me room to upgrade later. If I decide to get a better CPU, add more RAM, or install a powerful GPU in the future, I don't want the motherboard to be the one holding me back. After that comes RAM. The amount of RAM I choose depends entirely on what I'm doing with the PC. For gaming, one amount may be enough. For video editing and multitasking, I probably want more. I also won't just look at the capacity. I make sure the RAM speed is supported with the motherboard. Then comes the GPU. A lot of people immediately want the most powerful graphics card they can afford, but I focus on balance. I'd rather have a balanced system than spend everything on the GPU and end up making compromises
disagree.
everywhere else. If you're on a budget, it's completely okay to upgrade in stages. Your first build doesn't need to be perfect, you can always improve later. For storage, I start with an SSD. Storage is one of those things people don't think about until they run out of it. Games are getting bigger, and so video files, and having fast storage make the entire PC feel more responsive. Next is cooling. When choosing a cooler, I base it on the CPU I'm using. More powerful CPU generally produce more heat, which means they need better cooling. Whether there's a good air cooler or an AIO depends on the build and budget. Then there's the power supply. This is one of the last places I try to save money. The power supply affects every component in your system, so I rather buy a reliable unit with some extra headroom than the cheapest option available. Finally, the case. I like a good looking case as much as anyone else, but airflows matters too. No matter how powerful your components are, they can only perform their best if they're getting enough cooling. Also make sure that the case are fit for your components. At the end of the day, if I had to start over, I will just look on getting the most expensive and latest parts. I focus on building a balanced system that fits my needs, my budget, and gives me more room to upgrade later. Because in my experience, choosing the right parts isn't about building the most powerful PC. It's about building the right PC for you.